Hello, Mr. Hammill.
Hello there.
Hello. Glad to hear you.
Very good to speak to you too.
Is that true that you are an Andrew too?
Am I true? I'm what?
That your name is Andrew in the same time?
It is, yeah, that is my third name, yeah.
So we have the same name.
We have something in common, at least.
Yes. Listen, it's your first trip to Romania, yes?
It is indeed, yes.
And you can tell me, did you heard the people knows your music?
Yes, to a certain extent. I mean, obviously, it's fantastic to be able to come for a first time, and I'm very much looking forward to it. And I know at least there'll be some people who know the music, and yeah, very exciting.
I read here in the Mojo magazine that when you were working with Van der Graaf generator, you are unbeatable, unbearable. No band separated the men from the boys quite as emphatically as Van der Graaf generator. Please explain.
Well, I think because obviously it was always a question of, well, we were uncompromising in what we did, I think. And throughout the time of Van der Graaf and also through all the solo period, what we played was always driven entirely by what we thought the music should do and where the music led us, rather than by any other influences or any other desires and what have you. So that meant that it was quite uncompromising music, and it made certain demands on the audience. I guess that's what it means. But
it's true that you are not interested in a commercial part of the music.
We were not interested. Well, we were obviously interested in being able to survive and in having an audience, but we weren't chasing a commercial goal. No, certainly.
You had a few tours in Italy in the beginning of the 70s.
Yeah.
With the Pawn Hearts album that reached to number one at the time.
Yeah.
So you had a few problems there.
We did, yes.
And I want to know what's happened. Did you get back your instruments?
No, we never got back the instruments. Well, as you said, kind of a little bit after the Pawn Hearts era, when we went back in the later part of the 70s, we had our trucks stolen, and the instruments that were taken we never got back, which were some drums, guitar, bass, and not the organ or anything like that, not the saxes, but the guitars. We never got back. We did go back, or I certainly went back to Italy after that, and one has to remember that things were more complicated back in the 70s.
But it's true that the communists, they promoted your tour, and the fascists, they sabotaged?
There was something like that going on, yes. We did a show in, it was a complicated tour altogether. It was that this was, what happened here was at the very end of or halfway through the tour, as it turned out, we did a show which was sponsored by the Avanguardia del Lavoro, a left-wing organization in Rome. It was very hard to tell in Italy at the time. There were a lot of people who didn't want shows to happen for one reason or another. The left, I think, didn't want shows to happen because they thought that people should be involved in the struggle. And the right didn't want shows because it's kind of naturally rock music is not something generally that right-wing go for. And you could never really tell actually who was responsible for the things that were going on. Because before this happened in Rome, we did have problems in a previous show in Padua where people invaded the hall where the place was taken from the back. But this wasn't just a problem in Italy, I have to say. We had similar problems in France at different times. Just because it was the 70s. It was a different world.
Yes, I know. I'm the same age like you, so.
Oh, right. So you remember all of it.
I can remember, but we lived here in communism, so you have another life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But tell me, how you looked at the Woodstock period, because you were 21 at the time being.
I was, but it was. Really, I've always had more of a European perspective, I think, than an American one. I have toured in the States and indeed in Canada, both with Van der Graaf and solo, but not that much. There are a lot of people of my generation who've spent literally years touring in the States and have a particularly American kind of perspective on things. Maybe because actually for a long time it's been a completely organized thing to do shows over there, and I think it can in certain ways be a more painless experience, I suppose. But I've always had more of a European attitude, and so I understand, the kind of the Woodstock American perspective, but it's a slightly different one to the European one, I think.
Absolutely sure. So you didn't wear flowers in your head?
I did, yeah. I did kind of have a bit of flowers in my hair era, but particularly, but again, we've always had a little bit more of a dark edge than just be doing peace signs and so on.
Do you have some friends in the musical field from the old times or the new times?
Obviously, because we're still going. In Van der Graaf, we still remain friends happily. I have a few musician friends, but actually not so very many. Almost deliberately, kind of from way back in the 70s, I tried not to live within the world of just being a musician, because I realized that I, as a writer, I needed to be outside that world, or else my life would be one of touring and hotels and so on, and that wouldn't give me as good a perspective from which to write as if I stayed outside music. So I do have some friends and acquaintances.
So I don't ask names.
Sorry?
I don't ask names because
no.
Maybe it's hard to
do
it.
Obviously, one who does remain a friend, and because we go back all the way, is Peter Gabriel. So we see each other, maybe only once or twice a year. But the interesting thing is that when we see each other, we never actually talk about music. We'll talk about anything else, but not about music. So
about science.
About science, about society, and about sport sometimes as well. Just the normal thing of men of a certain age.
Yes, of our age. You love sports, I know.
I do like sports a lot. Yeah.
Which is your favorite?
In the winter, it's rugby.
Oh, in the winter.
In the winter, it's rugby, and in the summer, it's cricket.
So you don't like football?
I'm not so much of a football man. I used to be very, very keen on football, both playing it, kind of casually, and also as a fan. I find for me there's too much money in football now,
and too much passion in the same time.
Yeah.
Why you said sometimes that you are self-obsessed? You are till now?
Well, the nature of my personality, I suppose, is that if I become interested in something, I will become obsessional about it to a certain extent. And particularly if I'm in the middle of working, I just concentrate completely on, particularly recording. I will be, completely head down into the recording world. And I suppose actually that if I wasn't like that, then it wouldn't have been possible for me to have this career over all of these years, because I think you do need to have a certain, if it's possible to have a healthy level of self-obsession, I think you need to have that in order to carry on working within music. And
how important is for a frontman to be a democratic one with a band?
It's not so important, I think, when you're young, because when you're young and in a band, then it's sort of all the things. Obviously you are a gang, and so you have the usual dynamics of a gang group, and obviously also when you're young, there's an awful lot of ego involved from everybody, not just from the front man. Everyone has their ego and so on.
That you were a band leader in the same time.
Kind of, but also I'd say we were a democratic band. We didn't do things unless we all agreed. But yeah, there was a kind of lot of ego tussles. I had to say, that since we've had this strange experience, in some ways, of reforming in our 50s and now in our 60s, obviously, it's more of a. I mean, as I say, it's always been democratic, but now, and I think particularly since we became a trio, so after David Jackson left the group, we're actually very keen to be responsive to each other's needs and concerns and so on. And it's no, in other words, what I'm saying is it's no longer a kind of an ego battle.
Ah, I see.
And that produces a different thing. So in answer to the question, yeah, I think it's important for everybody, actually, not just the frontman, for everybody to push their interests and their beliefs as much as it's possible, because that's what makes groups work in the first place. But then when you're older, as it is with with just in normal life, when you're older, you take a kind of a slightly more not necessarily a relaxed view, but more of a grey view of things. When you're young, it's natural to see everything in absolute strict black and white terms.
I agree with you.
And then as you get older, you say, well, I understand this aspect of that and that aspect of the other, and so one has a bit more of a measured approach, I think.
Tell me, please, how important it was for you to record your own material at home in the same time with the phonograph generator material, and how you choose which is Peter Hammill and which is Van der Graaf?
Okay, well, obviously, back in the day, I mean, there was. I never had a kind of a stock of material that I'd pick something out for Van der Graaf, something else out for solo.
They are different projects.
They're different projects, exactly. In the very start, it was clear that that in general I'd be writing things for Van der Graaf first of all. That was the main target for songs coming out. When I made my very first solo record, Fool's Mate, that was at the time that Van der Graaf was going, but it used songs that were kind of from earlier, from when I was younger, before, and they weren't ever going to be Van der Graaf songs. Then there were periods when Van der Graaf wasn't in existence, and so I put anything would go into the solo material, and then later, again, I'd know what album was coming up next, and therefore what songs were needed, and whether it was a Van der Graaf or a solo project. Another important thing is that if I was writing songs for Van der Graaf, then there had to be, even though I was writing them and had kind of sole responsibility, particularly for the lyrics, I had to, in my mind at least, I suspect in the minds of the others as well, I had to not just it had to be things that were not just of interest to me, or things, not just things that I believed in, but they had to be things that we all had some interest in some common accord and what have you, because obviously the songs were representing all 4 or 5 or so of us. So I know from outside it may look as though it's kind of completely random, but internally actually there's never been a conflict about whether it should be a Van der Graaf song or a solo song.
How much did change your life in 2003? Your self-image did change after what happened?
For a time, because obviously until something like this is, you're speaking my heart attack, yes?
Yes, but I didn't say it.
No, okay. But to be clear, I mean, obviously, until something like that happens, one has the feeling that one is immortal.
Yes, you're right.
And that things will go on forever and ever. And the beneficial aspect of something like that happening is obviously that you realize you're not immortal, and therefore actually you, in the immediate aftermath, once one's recovered to a certain extent, there's a very, in my experience, there's a very positive aspect to just the fact that being alive in itself is fantastic. Of human nature being human nature, it doesn't take very long for you to think that you're immortal again. Now, of course, I know I'm not immortal, and obviously I know that I'm of a certain age, but it was, I think, it is something that happened in my life, obviously one of the major events of my life, I suppose, and so it's there in the story, and if I could now, I wouldn't change it, because I did learn quite a lot from the experience.
It's a great experience, but you didn't need it at all?
I didn't need it at the time, but having had it, and obviously now it's more than 10 years, I actually haven't had any recurrence of heart problems. I mean, I still have my heart checked out every year, but I haven't had any recurrence. So from that point of view, I was lucky. My cardiologist says, actually, if you're going to have a heart attack, mine is the best kind of heart attack to have. So yeah.
Who will be with you on stage in Sibiu, in Romania, or you'll be alone?
I'll be completely alone. Well, I'll be alone with the songs. So
you know by now what you will sing for us?
I don't know. No, I don't know at all because I have obviously there are many songs over the years. I think because it's the first time, I might kind of lean more towards some older songs than I usually do because those will be the ones that people know from the old days. But I mean, at this point, I have it's possible for me to play anything like 80 or 90 different songs. So and I usually don't decide until about an hour before the show. I think I might in the next couple of weeks I'll make some decisions and see. But right now I don't know. In any case, it'll be a mixture of old songs and new songs. Obviously, it's a solo performance. In a way, it's like presenting the skeletons of the songs, and in those which are from the past and had big instrumentation, then there's a degree of imagination that's needed or not to fill in what the sound was originally. But obviously, it's something that I've done for many years, and it's different to obviously the kind of full-on drums and big sound of recordings. But I hope it's powerful, and I hope the audience will enjoy it.
I'm sure it is. I listened to some of your YouTube material, and
right.
you have a lot of good material, even for those who didn't like the sound, the power, like
right.
Handicap and Equality.
Yeah.
You love it till now?
Oh, see, that's a good song, but there are loads of good songs, I think.
I'm sure you have a lot. I wanted to ask you if you helped your daughters to sing, or they do it for themselves?
They did it for themselves. They, well, first of all, all three daughters wanted to learn to play piano, which was not, and they can read music. I still don't read music or write it. I do, just do it by ear. So they, not through my forcing them, they all wanted to learn piano. And then when they were at school, they all sang in choirs. And so as a result of singing in choirs, they wanted to learn to sing properly as well. And so yeah, they don't do it professionally, but happily they have an enjoyment of music in terms of making music. That's different, of course, from mine, because if your relationship to music is different if you've done it professionally, particularly if you've done it over many, many years. But of course, I'm glad to say that they get pleasure out of music.
They had a few songs. They are backing vocals for you.
They do indeed. Yeah. Well, they're decent singers. I haven't used them again for quite some time now. And the youngest has never been. It's only the two eldest who've sung on records. But yeah, there are notes that I can't reach. So if I need those notes, then I have to call on them.
But that they are not living together with you.
They're not. No. They're all completely adults, and they live in London. We see each other a great deal, happily. This is as one goes on in life, then the things that are important, I think, include family, and also the fact that they still get on with us and want to see us, and indeed they get on with each other, because often brothers and sisters don't get on with each other, but happily they do. So that in terms of what a life has meant, that's been a particularly good aspect for my wife and I. So
you're a proud family man.
Indeed, yes.
It doesn't happen very often in the rock field.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't. It's true.
So you're a strange kind.
But again, this kind of goes back to the question about do I have many musician friends. I also have. I mean, obviously, I have spent a lot of time touring. I've been away from home a lot, but I haven't actually been away for the years and years that often people who are on the real treadmill of rock music do. And obviously that you know, if you're on that treadmill, you turn around suddenly and your baby is a grown up and you haven't been there at all. So you know, I have been there for maybe more than most musicians have. I mean, but having said that, obviously, you know, I have spent a lot of time away, but yeah, it's not so usual.
Please, what's your recommendation for someone who wants to know Peter Hammill, the man from today? What should we listen to till you are coming in Romania?
Not so long ago, I did
a new album.
And I did an album. I put out an album which had actually performances, piano, guitar, and vox. It's called, and that actually does have solo performances. So in fact, that will be something like, because you know, the way that I perform is, I hope that no song will be exact. I don't play each song exactly the same every night. But that would be a kind of a good representation of what the kind of thing that I'll be doing.
Okay, we'll do that till you're coming, and we are very happy that
I'm very, very happy to be coming
this year
as well.
You'll be here in Romania.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Okay, great pleasure. Lovely to speak to you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.